Hello everyone, this is Victor Dantas here from the Zero to Hero Academy. Over the years we have helped multiple professionals either get into the Power Platform market or some of the seasoned professionals within the industry up their game within the low-code technologies. And we are here to announce that we have a special program coming up between March 19th and May 30th. This is the Power Pages and AI Zero to Hero Mentorship Program. Join us, click on the link, access the lessons. You know how we do it. Live lessons on Teams, and then the recorder goes up to YouTube and you can follow if you are in different time zones, but we prefer it to join it live. Connect, ask questions. So go ahead, invite your colleagues, your dad, your mom, your grandpa. Let's everybody join the fun. All right, we'll see you there. Take care. I'm excited for today's lesson. If you don't know Oliver Rodrigues, he's an MVP, a fellow Brazilian based out of Dublin, Ireland. And you probably have been helped by a lot of his articles on the community websites. I was rescued by one of your articles this week, Oliver. So thank you so much for dedicating time today. The floor is yours, my friend. Take it away.
That's great. Thanks a lot, Victor. Yeah, and yeah, absolutely. Like, first of all, it's a pleasure to be here talking to everyone. And like, big shout out to Victor, who put this together, organized this event. Lots of speakers, and I think like AI is a topic, the topic of the year, the last 2 years. So we really need to be up to speed with Copilot, ChatGPT, and AI tools that can help us, with our jobs. So that was a great idea. Thanks for that, Victor. And if you haven't caught up on the previous session, I think was one from Victor, Nick, Tino, and Franco. They are available on YouTube, and they are really, really good sessions. So I highly recommend you checking it out. All right. So like Victor said, so I'm Oliver Rodrigues. I'm a Microsoft MVP. I am based in Ireland, and Victor was very generous to put me in a very fit avatar here. I'm far from that, but I love the idea. I love it, Victor, so thank you. And I have a blog here, which I have the QR code, so haven't been very active on my blog. However, I am very active in the community forums. So if you have ever posted a question on the forum, I may have seen it, I may have answered. I hope I answered correctly. I hope I was able to help. That's one of the areas that I focus the most. So today here, I am gonna talk about JavaScript and jQuery for Power Pages using Copilot. And it's going to be a little bit different than what the guys have done in the previous sessions. So from what I saw there, the guys used generative AI to pretty much build portal pages or use fetch and liquid tag to retrieve data and to render data on the pages. I'm going to do something a little bit different, right? And if you follow my articles, you're going to see that something that I love to do is use an out-of-the-box component. So for example, lists or basic forms, and apply JavaScript on top of that. So I'm leveraging out-of-the-box elements and then applying customizations on top. And I'm not talking about layout here. I'm mainly talking about adding functionality to the components. It's something that I like doing. And when I see a question on the forum, I love playing around. I just think it's very challenging. And with portals, with Power Pages, we don't have a lot of restriction in terms of what we can do. So we can pretty much do anything when it comes to JavaScript customizations. So that's what I'm talking here today. And one thing that I loved when I was preparing for this demo is that generative AI, as you know, it always, depending on your prompt, even if you have the same prompt, it will still it might give you different answers. So as I was preparing for this demo, I said, oh, this is going to be challenging because sometimes it gives me the answer that I want, sometimes it doesn't. So I'm pretty sure that all the speakers are finding the same challenge. and it really challenges the speaker here, to know what the AI output is, and then be able to explain that. So I think it's a great topic to talk about. My presentation won't be heavy on the presentation here on the PowerPoint itself. I'll focus more on the demo. So I'll just gonna give a high level introduction to client-side scripting, and how we apply to, or where we apply to Power Pages, and then of course talk about Copilot, and I'll open the floor for questions. So in terms of client-side script, right, JavaScript, what is it? It executes within the browser. So it means that the page has rendered and all the data from the server, in this case, Dataverse and Dynamics 365, has already loaded on the page, and then the JavaScript or the client-side script is executed on top of it. Now, there are ways using AJAX call to go back to the server and request information, for example, using web APIs. But majority of the JavaScript is really, just manipulating the page after it's already rendered. So very, very much used to manipulate data, validate data, display alerts, pop-up modal, and that kind of stuff. Move content around. One thing that comes always in the forums is to hide or show fields, or hide and show an option within an option set. And that kind of stuff that we use a lot. And then when it comes to jQuery, so jQuery, it's basically JavaScript. It's just an open source JavaScript library, and simplifies a lot the JavaScript code. So something that would be, 10, 20 lines of JavaScript, you could do with just a few lines of jQuery. I'm assuming everybody here is familiar with this concept, but if you have any questions, the same thing for Power Pages. So if you have any questions here about Power Pages, feel free to throw in the chat or ask me here, and I'll try to respond. So let me jump here to my demo. All right, so I think like the first thing here, I have a very, very plain portal here. And I'm already signed in, and I have a list component pointing to my applications. Right, so standard stuff here, nothing too complex. I have about 3 columns. I have a create button, and I have the edit and delete actions here. So it's working fine. The edit brings me to my form and all of that. So when it comes to client-side script, I think something that I always tell people is that your browser dev tools are your best friend. So you really need to be familiar. And this is all I've been saying here is regardless of AI, regardless of Copilot and all. So you really need to be familiar with inspecting elements on the page, getting classes and getting the IDs of the attributes of the elements, right? And as well as execute stuff in the console of the browser. The reason for this here is because there's no official library to work with Power Pages components. So it's really a matter of coming here, manipulating this this table via understanding how it's presented in the page, and then manipulating, getting those elements and working with those through JavaScript. So the other thing here I have is I have my GitHub Copilot and a Visual Studio code. What I'm going to show here, the same would be able to achieve using regular Copilot or ChatGPT, even the free version, if that's all you have access. I always recommend people to go, for a paid version of an AI tool. But if you don't have access to that now, I don't think that's a problem, and I don't think that should stop you from using AI. I think AI is the future here, and it's not going to replace us. That's why it's a Copilot. You are still driving the AI tool, but it will really help us with our jobs, with making things faster. So I highly recommend people starting using it. So I have a few prompts here that I have here. I'm just going to copy and paste. So my first prompt here, I'm going to say, I have a list component from Power Pages site. how can I attach code to the onload of the list? So simple stuff. Let's see what happens. I'm saying simple because I'm very familiar with it, but it may not be that simple for some people, or even for Copilot. So it's giving me some explanation here that I'm not too interested at the moment. And then it's giving me the code. So I'll just transpose the code here to the main area just to take a look. I can change this to JavaScript. Now, right at the top of my head, and it's so funny because this is already a different result than yesterday for the same prompt. And I completely don't like what I'm seeing for several reasons, right? It's not showing me the onload, how to trigger something in the onload event. And it's also getting the list by the ID, which from experience, I know we don't have. And the way I know this is because if you inspect the element and if you go to the table, I know that this is the div who represents the table. We don't have any ID here. We have classes, but we don't have the ID. So I'm absolutely not happy with this. I'll just try to add more information to see if it helps me. So I'm going to say my list doesn't have an ID. It is referenced by two classes, I should say here, by two classes called entity list and entity grid. Okay, I'm going to put this code, sorry, I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to put this code here. Yeah, again, didn't quite like, it is getting my list object, which, okay, fair enough. However, it's not triggering the onload. So I'm going to do it here manually. Now I know from the top of my head, but if you didn't know, well, I would have articles, or there are many other articles, or I should probably copy here to make sure I'm not going to make any mistake, which I should be this. So if I do this, let me just do here. Just going to copy this for simplicity. So, okay, I'm going to start here my way, basically, which I'm saying, select my classes, my elements that I have these two classes. I know that this selector would retrieve an array, so I'm getting the first one, and I'm saying on the load event, just print something in the console. For simplicity, I'm gonna throw this in my browser console, but otherwise I could as well have put in my list JavaScript, but just to save time, I'm going to throw here in the console. Once I do this, it will just inject the code to my list object. However, nothing's happening here because the list is already loaded. So one trick here that I'm gonna show is if I simply sort my list, or even if I delete a record, it will reload the list. So this code should trigger. And once I sort there, I have my list loaded here. So, okay, I had to help a little bit here, Copilot, but that's fine. We'll keep going. Let's see if Copilot's going to help me with my next prompt. So let's see here. For my next prompt, what I want to do is I want to print in the console the application ID value. So let me jump back here, and I'm going to say, that's great. Now, can you add code to print in the console the value of my column called application ID? So it has copied my onload here. So I'll just throw it underneath, just so we see a bit better. And I can probably replace this here. Okay, so it's reusing my loaded function here and select the column cells and print their text. This in this case here is the table because it's in the context of my table function. However, it's trying to find a class called application ID that it doesn't make a lot of sense. I know that's not how my table is structured. And even if I jump here to the elements, and I can inspect my application ID itself, I know that I have that data attribute. I know I have the data value. I have the data table header pointing to the application ID, but I don't have that class that it was suggesting to me. So it doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm gonna help Copilot here with something else then. Let's say that wasn't quite right. Can you loop through my table rows and print in the console the value of the cell with the header application ID? So my previous prompt, and I can even go back here, my previous prompt was very, very generic, right? And it was very difficult for Copilot to know how they would achieve that. So now I'm going to give more details, just as previously I was saying, look, this is the class that I'm using, so maybe reference this class. And that's where we go back here to that conversation. This is a Copilot. You really need to give the context to explain what you're trying to achieve or how your code is structured. Because Power Pages doesn't have, it's probably not that old or commonly used in general, so it doesn't know exactly how it renders on the pages. So I'm going to take a look at this code here now. It is finding the index of the column with the header application ID, which, let me see if this makes sense. So it's looping through each table header, which does look right. And if the column was found, print the value of the cell in each row. It could work. And now I see that this is not tied to my loaded function. So I'll probably be able to just paste this in the console and technically should work. So I'm going to try this. No, didn't quite work. Why is that? It's probably not getting that because I know that it's not the th is probably not the next element. It's probably a few elements in between, and that's fine. I'm gonna try to give Copilot another chance. So I'm gonna give more details here. I'm gonna say to assist you with a more precise answer, I will share here the structure of my role, and I'm gonna come here. And I'm going to copy my entire row. So I'm going to copy the element and paste here to Copilot. So I'm basically giving Copilot, the HTML that I want it to do the job. And let's see if it's going to prompt a better answer. And it has already given me a much shorter code. I'll get rid of this code because I'm not happy about it. Let's see. So it's gonna loop through my rows, which again, not quite happy with the way it's structured here, but that's fine. And find the cell with the header application ID and print its text. So it's finding the, it's still not, promised that yesterday it gave me a lot better results. Well, let me see if I can, or let me just check my previous code here. Yeah, it's not looping through the table body, but let me just see what happens if I throw this in the console. Well, to be fair, it did work. So it did work, but the only thing that I didn't like is that it's printing me one empty row. And the reason for this is probably because it's trying to print the application ID header. So possibly if I specify here that is tbody, this should probably fix. Yeah, so now it's not printing that empty line here, which I'm happy enough about it. Okay, so let me just clean up this a little bit. So I'm gonna move this item to, let me see, I can get rid of this in here. And I'll just clean up a little bit this code here. So I'm going to move this to the top. Let me get rid of this. So on the load of my function, it's looping through my T-body rows and printing. So all of this here should work fine. Sorry, I'm going to make a few small tweaks here. I hope everybody's able to follow. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create an object here called table, just to represent the table. And I'm going to get basically this element of my table. And since I already have the table, I can loop. I can do this. So basically get the table and find. I don't need to search for this element here again because I already have it. So I can just say find the T-body TRs, table row. And finally, I'm going to say get just initiate a variable for the table row, which is the new this. Remember that this always represents the object that is in the context here. So up above, this means the table. And within this function here, this means the table row, because that's where I'm pulling. So you really need to have to be comfortable with the way JavaScript or jQuery are structured, just to get a better result of your code. Just to test this, I'm going to execute my loaded function here. I'll just refresh this page just to clear whatever I have in my table here. And I'm going to add the JavaScript code, and I'm going to sort here. Yeah, and it's still working fine as expected. Okay, so that's good. Okay, so next prompt here I have is I want to hide this column here. So I'm going to try to hide the form session ID column. So I'm going to tell Copilot, I like the structure of my code, which in other words, this basically is going to tell Copilot to keep my code as it is, right? I have made a few tweaks there that I wanted. It was a manual tweak, so keep it like that. I could as well ask a prompt here, but I just prefer to do on the side just to keep it neat. So I'm saying, can you add some logic to hide a column with the header form session ID from my table? Okay, so let me see here the code that it generated. So it kept pretty much my structure of the code. I'm even going to get rid of my previous code there. So okay, so it's telling it's trying to get a cell here that is finding the data table header, whereas application ID, which this makes sense to me. Now it's printing the cell text, which it doesn't make sense. What I actually want is to hide, but which I can probably do. Cell dot hide. That's fine. I'll just do this manually. It's still printing the text. Doesn't matter to me, but that's okay. Hide the text with the header. Sorry, hide the column with the header form session ID. So this is hiding. Well, to be fair, I don't know really the difference of these two. It seems that it kind of duplicated the code. So this is exactly like quite strange what it did here. So I'll try to keep it as it was, and let's see if Let's see what happens. So refresh, just to add the code again. Gonna clear here the console, add the function, and I'm going to sort just to see. All right, it did hide my value here. It didn't hide the header, and we're gonna check this in a second. I do think this is doing twice. Sorry, getting this value here twice, which I don't understand why it did this. I feel like this is duplicated. So you really need to understand here what's going on, but it's not a big deal. I can probably comment this, and look, I'll keep it just in case. However, it's not removing the header. And the reason I have an idea here why it's not removing, it's because I'm looping through the table body. And this header, if I look in my elements, this is not in my table body. This is my table head. So again, it's a Copilot. You need to give information, or you need to do a few tweaks after, because this is actually at the head. So if it's at the table head level, I'm gonna have to do something different. I'm gonna have to do table find t head. I can probably find the table row, which doesn't really need. I can probably do this. I know it's a link. And let me see here. I probably have this code here somewhere, so I'll just copy and paste for simplicity. So let's see. I think this one here would probably work for both, but I don't think I need this, so I can do just this one here. So table find the table th with the array label from session ID hide. So this should technically work. I'm gonna try once more. All right, so now it hit both. I'm happy with that. So let me go back here. Okay, my next prompt will be something actually a little bit still on my list. I love playing with lists. So what I'm going to do here is I have a drop down with the edit and delete actions. And what I want to do is I want to get rid of entirely of this drop down and place the edit and delete links directly here on my row at the on the right hand side. So as part of my prompt, I'm going to say, can you move the elements from the drop-down action menu to be placed on the list itself, and remove the drop-down. Also remove any bullet points from the links and texts. And I'm saying this about the bullet points because it's a link. It would normally add a bullet point there that I don't want. So just asking that in advance. And one thing here important to note is I already previously I had shared with Copilot my table row structure. So basically Copilot already knows how my table is structured and can keep that in the context and keep suggesting me code for my table. Okay, let me see if I can get rid of this one here. I think I probably can because it's sticking with my code. All right, so it's doing something here. So let's see. It's getting the drop down via two classes here, drop down action, which I do think it makes sense. I'll just double check. So I'm going to inspect my drop down and drop down action. So it makes sense. And it's getting in the context of my table row. So I know it's going to execute this for each item. It's finding the items via drop-down finding, and then the class drop-down item, which let me check who that is. It's probably in here. Yeah, it's the A element, the anchor element. Then it's, well, it's hiding. Sorry, no, it's changing the bullet points behavior. and then moving, basically transposing those items to a different level, and removing the drop down. Okay, I think this is going to work. And again, this is a completely different code than what it gave me yesterday. So that's really cool to see. So going to sort here. Yeah, and it worked. Now, I did ask to remove the text, and it didn't remove the text, but the link seems to be working fine here. I wish I could spend a few more times here, a few extra minutes to see why it didn't remove the text, but I'm just going to skip. But I think that's something interesting here. Like we use Copilot and manipulate quite a lot this list. And I actually think I have one more trick here for the list, right? So this create here or edit is pointing to a multi-step form. And in this multi-step form, I think there's a known behavior that is very difficult to have multiple applications setting it to continue from the same step. And one trick for that is changing the session ID. So I'm going to give more details on that on Thursday. So in 2 days' time, stay tuned for the next session. But basically part of that we're going to do here now. What I want, remember that form session ID that I had here as a column. I want to basically replace the value from my link here on the edit link to use that form session ID. So just to make sure everything makes sense, I'm going to copy my application ID here. I'll just put a comment here. So this application ID, if I just copy the link for the edit, and I'm going to put current link. So don't really care about the URL. I'm actually only interested in the GUID. So I'm going to get rid of this. And I'll just refresh the page. Oops, cancel. I'll refresh the page here. So basically what I want is to replace this session ID here for this value from my form session ID. So I'll just new link should be something like this, right? Session ID equals. So that's the behavior that I want. Okay, so let me get my next prompt, and I'm going to say to Copilot, for each row in my edit link, so I'm already saying what's the element, and I think there's a class there called edit link. Can you replace the session ID value from the query string to the value from form session ID? I should probably say column here. Okay, so it's generating the code. I'll just clean up here, so I'll probably get rid of this. Okay, so and like Copilot is always giving you plenty of explanation on what's doing and why it is doing and how to replace or which elements to replace. I'm kind of skipping all of that now, but it's very useful if you're learning or if you're curious to know what it's doing or why it's doing, right? Okay, so move the elements. That's fine here. We cover this. Replace the session ID. So let me see what it's doing. So it's getting the edit link. Good. And it's creating a new URL object. It's setting my session ID parameter to the. All right. So I think this object we already had because we were hiding it. So now it's just getting the attribute data value, which I think it all makes sense. So let me just copy this once more. Refresh here. So again, we were looking to change this value from this link here. Let's sort. Well, seems that we got an error there. but something definitely has happened. Failed to construct the URL. So that's an interesting one. Didn't get this one before. So let me see here if Copilot's going to be able to help me. I'm going to say I got this error. Is there another way to build the URL? And haven't tested any of this, so let me see if it's going to work. Oh, again, let me clean this here. It definitely did something different. So yeah, definitely did something different here. Let's see if it's gonna work. Okay, it didn't throw an error. And let me just copy this link here. And let's see if it replaced for, and I think it worked just fine. So as you can see here, the new URL, it has replaced for the new link, which is great. It's exactly what I wanted. And I can click on edit, and it's gonna jump to the last step that I was in this application here. That's great. That's exactly what I want. Okay, so I'm gonna jump here to a basic form, and now I think those are the main items that I wanted to cover on the list. I just have a couple here that I wanted to show on a basic form, and then I'll open the floor for questions. So okay, one big item here that I get asked a lot in the forum is hide and show fields. I have an article about that, and people still, if they still get to ask. I don't know if they can't find, or it's just something that comes up a lot. And when people are new, it's just a basic requirement, right? So what I'm going to do here is hide the color field and only show if the product type, for example, is car. So let me jump here. So I like this one here. I don't care about that anymore. So I'm going to start a new chat, a new file. And I'm going to say, I have a basic form in Power Pages, and I want to add hide and show for specific field, depending on the value, depending on the selected value of another field. Can you help me achieve that using jQuery? Okay, let me see here what has generated. So initially hide the target field makes total sense. And I know that the name of the field is Ollie color, right? And I can probably change here the target field already. Listens for the changes of the selected field. Great, that's exactly what I would do. And I know that that field is called Ollie product ID. I could have given this detail beforehand to Copilot, but I decided to do here. Sorry, it's product type. And then we just need to put the value here. So I'm just gonna get the value for car. So I'm going to expect my product type. I can expand there, and car has this value. So this is a lookup that I'm rendering as dropdown. So we're going to copy this. And I think just one thing that I forgot to mention, back here in my list code, and the same for the basic form, I am testing things directly in the console. But for example, if I just copy this entire code, this is the one back for the list, and place in my list options, custom JavaScript. Seems to be loading here. I'll just refresh the page. So this is the way that I would do to apply it naturally, right? Without me having to jump on the console. So if I clear cache, I'll just duplicate the tab here just temporarily just to show that. So right now, if I go to my application, that JavaScript code triggered automatically because it's already in the page load. So the same thing would apply here for the basic form. Okay, apologies for that. Jumping back here on the basic form. So okay, I'm going to execute this part here of the code directly in my browser. And we can see here that we have the color. So once I execute, the color is hidden. Now it's supposed to hide as well the color, the parent element. Copilot doesn't know that, so I should have probably given more details on how my form is structured, but I'm gonna ignore that for now. And if I select motorbike, it doesn't show. I'll just hide this. If I select car, it shows the color, and if I change again, it hides the color. So that's the idea there. And finally, just one last item here for Copilot. Let me see. I'm gonna say, I have a basic form in Power Pages. I want to add validation that my price field, that my file price is bigger than 5,000. So that's the validation. Can you help me achieve that? So I can just place here. Now, what it's doing here, that's something interesting, right? It's injecting code to the change of my price field. This is wrong, but that's fine. It's injecting code to the change and popping up an alert. This is not exactly wrong, but it's not adding validation the way Power Pages works, Power Pages forms. So even if, for example, I jump here on the documentation. So if you look here at the official documentation, we have the page validators object that are used for this purpose. And the page validators is technically a .NET object. So I'm just gonna give a little bit more information to Copilot here. I'm going to say, are you familiar with the page validators object from Power Pages or .NET? Can you incorporate that? And the page validators object is quite an interesting one. So while it's generating, I'm just going to show back here. So if I inspect here my page again, and I just search for page validators, you're going to see that we have already 6 objects six items in that page validators object. So it is just something interesting for reference. Okay, I can get rid of this code here. Now it's still not quite what I wanted. Interesting, because it was giving me much better results. Still not what I want. Can you? Yeah, that's quite a unique code that it generated there. Can you try again? Yeah, still not. I'm using only JS/jQuery. I don't have access to the .NET page. Yeah, again, actually, still didn't do the job. Funny enough, so I'm going to just copy here what I had yesterday. So literally yesterday, it generated this code here for me, which is exactly how Power Pages work. All I had to do is change the control to validate here and the price field, but pretty much everything it worked exactly the way Power Pages works. Now and if I open here the documentation, the error message it should be a HTML, and in this scenario here, it's giving me a text. But other than that, it was pretty spot on. So it's a shame that it didn't work today here. But look, so it's that thing about the Copilot, right? You need to see how you need to understand what it is and use the Copilot to help you, but not just solely rely on the Copilot. I'm just gonna jump to questions here. I haven't been keeping an eye on the chat, so let me just jump here.
I got you. I haven't seen much on the chat window neither. But folks, if you have a mic or even camera and you want to unmute yourself and ask questions, ask away. I do have a comment while you prepare your questions. It used to be, I mean, what Oliver is talking about, the differences between the responses from prompts, like from last night and today, and how things are moving in a speed that we at times don't find the same pace, to keep up. I've noticed that, and more on the positive side, what I've seen is I used Copilot, not only GitHub Copilot, but the Copilot for Power Pages for scenarios where I didn't want to go to the documentation. So I would ask Copilot, how can I inquire information from the entities object or the page object within Power Pages? So that saved me a trip to the website. But nowadays, especially this week, I mean, I was so blown away by what Franco showed and some of the stuff that Nick showed and Tino, that I had to write. I'm writing a template for the community, a website template, and I had to write some API, and the notification and alerts and things like that. I said, okay, I'll buy Copilot this week, GitHub Copilot this week, and I'll try it out. And I don't think I'll ever go back to my old ways of trying to figure out things on my own. I wrote pretty much a whole implementation of alert system within Power Pages with the help of Copilot. So it's getting better. I mean, we will experience this, scenarios where a prompt that worked for me perfectly yesterday is not quite working today. But the more we use, especially within the context of Power Pages, the better it gets for us. So that is my 2 cents there. I don't know if anyone in the call has a comment, a question. Maybe you're not a coder and you saw that, if you understand a little bit of the structure and how jQuery works, you'd be able to help Copilot help you out. Share your experience. This last 10 minutes is for you to ask questions. Even if it's not directly related to the lesson, you're free to ask questions, make comments, ask away.
Absolutely, yeah. And like, I think it's so funny because I think in 2 years' time or 3 years' time, like AI is going to be so incorporated and so accurate that, like the things that we are talking, oh, it gave me a better prompt yesterday. Oh, it didn't work as I expected. It like these things we won't ever be talking about in the future.
Yeah, we do have a comment from Kevin. Kevin is suggesting a creation of a prompt library. So there is one already, Kevin, and I will share the link here. This is official from Microsoft. There is one team called the Microsoft CAT. I can't remember exactly what it stands for, but it's customer something
Advisory team, I think.
Advisory team, yes, perfect. So they do a lot of work in social media, and they engage with the community there, both to create examples, but also to post and open a channel so the community can engage. So this is a public GitHub repo. You can submit your suggestions; they will validate, of course, but it's already here. So Yeah, maybe contribute a little there too, Kevin. I know there are some prompts I wanted to submit. Yeah, this would be a great space. One thing that we are doing in terms of prompt and AI in general, and I always put the speakers on the spot here because I want to get their recorded buy-in in future sessions of Zero to Hero. But we are gonna do a mentorship solely on the use of AI and Copilot, and we are going to start from AI tools outside of the Microsoft ecosystem, and then we're gonna dive into M365 copilots, using that within Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and then SharePoint, so on and so forth. And then we'll dive into Power Platform Copilot. We are calling it Becoming a Pro Pilot, PRO Pilot. So we'll tap into that later on, and I think it's going to be a great journey as well. Okay. I don't know if there are any other questions. Actually, there is one more here from Peace. Is there a way to actually do this without code for those without code experience? All right.
Do you mean the customizations that I was applying in the demo piece?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. Now, well, some of the elements, yes. Now you'd have to create different pages with different pointing to different views in the system. For example, one with the column, let's call it extra column, and one without the extra column. And then you have to assign different permissions to users, different web roles to those pages. So each page would have access to a different view. Now, what I did there, particularly in that demo, was manipulating the ID of that URL, which we can't really change out of the box. By default, it always gets the GUID, the record of the GUID of the record in the list. So a few things, there are limitations, and that's why we kind of have to apply some JavaScript into Power Pages. But I'm sure that some other things Microsoft is trying to introduce slowly.
Yeah.
But some things it has added already.
Yeah, I think the idea that we are going to navigate through this app building journey without code 100%, it's utopic, I think, based on what I've seen in the industry from the days of Visual Basic, promising exactly the same, do more with less code. But we can get to a place nowadays that I don't have to code it all. I still need to understand what the machine is building for me, but at least you have someone sitting beside you theoretically 24/7 to answer questions that you may have. So I did a lesson on my first two lessons were in the structure of Power Pages, how each object is sitting within the technology, and even these layers of different technologies that are used for Power Pages. I would strongly advise folks that are coming from the no code side maybe to watch those lessons again, because then you'll be able to create better prompt, be it for the content editing side or even on the code side. Yeah, I don't think we'll get to a place where we say, Copilot, create this beautiful website for me with this type of color palette, so on and so forth. But at least you'll be able to start from a place, and then you tweak and fine tune your site as you go down the line. One of the things that we are providing input to Microsoft in terms of Power Pages is Copilot, rather, is to train the models in a way that it also sees the data model that has already been built in Dataverse. So eventually we'll get there. Like Oliver said, 2-3 years, maybe even earlier. We don't know, but that's the idea. The models have to be trained by us to an extent. So the prompts that we give and how we ask it to rebuild a site or rebuild a script, it's getting better day by day. And what we are unable to do through that channel, we are trying to give it to Microsoft. So any suggestions you have, any comments, we'll do our best to communicate to them as well. We still have 5 minutes. I don't see any additional questions. Any final words for today, Oliver?
I think nothing else here. Just thanks for the opportunity, Victor. And you're not rid of me just yet, because on Thursday I have the other session. So on Thursday it's going to be a bit less AI. I'm going to talk about multi-step forms in general in Power Pages. So actually, if you have any wonder, if you have a question around specifically for multi-step form process in Power Pages, do shoot me a message on LinkedIn or anything, and I'll try to incorporate that on the session as well.
100%. Awesome. Joe had a question here. I think you're referring to the JavaScript field within the list table. I haven't really encountered that threshold of characters. So I'm not sure. There is a limit for sure to a multi-line text field within Dataverse, but I don't know how that particular field is set up. I can tell you that I never encountered that limitation, but if you have, there could be other ways to script your function. Maybe what you do is you create a script outside, as a file, and then you reference that script within your JavaScript area for, be it a list or a basic form or a multi-step form. That's what I would do. Hopefully I responded hopefully I understood your question well. All right. Okay.
Yeah. I'd go for the same approach as Victor. Yeah, so just reference a web file or a different web template or something to reduce your JavaScript. But yeah.
Awesome. Oliver, my friend, thank you so much. Muito obrigado. And we'll see you on Thursday. Take care, my friends. Bye-bye.
Brilliant. Thank you, Victor. Thanks, everyone.
Brilliant. Thank you.